Yeah? Are you gonna smile? Yeah. Smile for mommy. Smile for mommy. Smile. There, Joseph. Yeah, there you are. There you are, my beautiful boy.
I grew up in a small village on the edge of a national park, and my grandfather lived next door to me. My auntie and my cousins lived across the field, and my friends over the other mountain. It was the best childhood I could ever imagine. The two houses on our land in Caerdraw, they have both been in our family for generations and generations, and they've been passed down to family member and to family member. So my grandfather's final wish was that he really wanted someone to take over the property, and I was so grateful that me and my husband James, we managed to have that amazing opportunity of owning this house. And I always dreamt of the childhood that I had growing up, having my parents next door, and when I have children, that their grandparents would be next door, and it would be this perfect kind of childhood, just like I had. Me and James, we got married, and then we had our first son, Liam, and then we had another son 3 years later, Joseph, and then everything was complete.
Hello, you two.
Hello, Mommy.
Hello, Joseph. Hello, Liam.
Hello.
When COVID happened, we couldn't see other family because they were far away. For a very short period, we were just this family unit, me, James, Liam and Joseph, and my parents as well were next door, and because we shared a joint garden, they were able to see Liam and Joseph all the time, and we had just amazing memories in that time. And I know COVID was a nightmare for a lot of people for a lot of good reasons, but for me, I did manage to have so much amazing family quality time together.
Joseph, go and drive. Go on. Turn. Turn it.
It was a beautiful sunny weather at that time, and we were so grateful to have the land around us where we just played constantly.
Wow.
One of the sheep that my father owns, he sadly passed away, so there was a lamb that needed a parent, and the boys brought up this lamb. They named him Molly, and I've just can remember Joseph loving Molly, chasing Molly around the garden, and trying to feed him, trying to ride on top of Molly the lamb. It was perfect for us, and the world around us was going through a nightmare time, but for me, I had this lovely kind of close family unit that we were just able to have that family time together. And then soon after Christmas, that's when our nightmare started in January 2021. It first happened with my elder son, Liam. For all over COVID, every month he was having a temperature, every month, and we couldn't figure out why he was having it. It all came to a peak in January where we had to rush him into hospital, and they found a very, very large kind of mass that they thought was going from his kidneys, so they thought it was a Wilms tumour. And we had a kind of a scary 2-week wait to see whether it was cancer or whether it was just an inflammatory mass. And we were so grateful after 2 weeks to find out that it was just an inflammatory mass.
Right, what can you see? What's that?
Moo.
A moo, but can you say cow?
Go.
Good boy.
Just before the Easter holidays, Joseph and Liam started to have a little bit of a cold, and Liam recovered instantly from this cold virus, but Joseph didn't. He started getting more unwell, and we thought, well, this isn't right. This is normally Liam getting unwell, And now all of a sudden Joseph is getting unwell. I knew there wasn't something right. And I begged the GP, I said, please, can you send me, somewhere to get things tested? And he said, well, it's just a virus. He's completely healthy. He's completely fine. And I explained about, and I probably over-exaggerated his eating habits, saying that he's not eating at all. And because I begged him so much, he kind of reluctantly agreed to send me down to the paediatric unit in Carmarthen in Glangwili. And then as soon as we got down there, the doctors explained the situation, and the doctors took a blood test. And that's when it hit us, because he had low platelets, which was a sign of cancer. And they thought he had leukemia. And I just couldn't believe that this was happening again after a couple of months. How can we dodge a bullet and then happen again with our other son? Didn't think that lightning could strike twice. We went home during the Monday bank holiday and Easter Sunday, and we had some family time before we went back to hospital to find out results. And when we went back, they still didn't know what it was. They ruled out leukemia, and I thought that if they're not understanding what it could be, is it going to be the worst scenario?
I'll never forget the day that we heard Joseph's diagnosis. I was actually with Katie at the time. I was in the Heath Hospital with her, and we went into the consultant's room together, and
they came back to say that it was stage 4 high risk neuroblastoma, and I knew what that meant. I already looked at it. I already looked at the odds, and the odds never go in your favour. 50% survival, but then if you relapse, there's only a 5% survival.
I'm still blown away by the tower of strength that she became. She walked out of that room having heard the most devastating thing that you could possibly hear, that your son had a rare and aggressive form of cancer, and that his chances of survival were quite poor. Yet she walked out of that room with a plan.
So I instantly went into fight mode, because I knew that I had faith. I always had faith and hope all the way through it, that no, he's had this diagnosis, but he's going to be fine, just like Liam is. And we went fighting, and I researched everything that I could possibly research, and to find out as much as we could about the disease. And then we came across a trial, because unfortunately the UK is a small country and there's not many trials going on for neuroblastoma, because it's such a rare childhood cancer. So this trial was in America, and it's already been on trial for about 10, 15 years. And I was thinking how, it takes that long for new medicine to come through to children, because there's not enough money going into the cancer research to get new things on the system. So I knew I needed to get something like a new treatment for him that could potentially be better odds than that 50 or 5% chance. And this cancer vaccine, bivalent cancer vaccine in New York, was showing amazing results, 80% survival rates and above. And I thought, he needs this. We can't let him relapse. We can't let him have that 5% survival. So we started looking, and, it was looking 200,000 plus. And then the trial changed to a 5-year trial, and then it was already 350,000 we had to raise. And we thought, how are we going to do this?
When we knew that we had to fundraise hundreds of thousands of pounds, it was an extremely frightening and daunting thought and realisation.
We had Help Joseph, Hulk Smash Cancer campaign, and where all our amazing family and friends and community just came together. I've never seen anything like it.
For the rest of my life, and for the rest of our lives, we are going to be indebted to the amount of people who came to support us, who came out of the community, of our family, of our friends, who just said, we are with you.
When this campaign launched, everybody knew everything about Joseph and about our family, and it really panicked me. But then what it brought instead was amazing community and support. And then I realised that how powerful that social media can be as well, and how like a village and a community and everyone in the UK and beyond, there were people supporting us from America, from Australia, from Holland, everywhere. And people just came together to try and help us raise that money that Joseph needed. It was the most amazing thing that I've seen. And then people were telling me how much strength that Joseph was giving him, because he smiled through everything. We were posting, obviously, pictures of his treatment and how things were going. And in every photo, Joseph was smiling. After every injection, he was still smiling, and his chemotherapy, still smiling. He was still getting up to dance, and he just showed this remarkable strength I just couldn't believe. And everything was just going so well. I had no doubt that he was going to survive. I had this faith. I had this hope that I knew everything was going to be fine. Yeah, oh, no, backwards you're going. Wow. Bang. Oh, no, okay. Oh, stop. Oh, Joseph, you're taking everything with you. Okay, I'm going to stop it. And then we had the induction chemo, and that was hard. It was a month in hospital where Joseph had the highest dose of chemo imaginable, and then I just sat there watching him deteriorate because the chemo was destroying everything inside him, and it was horrendous. But then what made it worse is the whole time, whereas the year before COVID was beautiful for me, having that lockdown and that family time, and now COVID, I was seeing the other side of it, because Joseph wasn't allowed any family in. My husband initially, he wasn't allowed in, and then the rules relaxed, and me and my husband were eventually allowed to see Joseph, but not at the same time. So during the winter months of his diagnosis, I had to sleep in the car while James was in the hospital with Joseph, and it was so cold. But the whole time Joseph was in, we were never allowed to have anyone else other than me and James. That was it. No one else was allowed to see him, and Joseph missed out on that. And that high dose chemo was the worst, because we were in there for a month, and I couldn't really see my son Liam because Joseph was so vulnerable to illness. And then he started to come around, and then the doctors were amazed by him because he did remarkably well. I remember our consultant saying, I wish every kind of child did as well as Joseph is doing on his treatment, because he's doing so well with everything. Yeah. And then we came out in November, and there was this amazing patron, this amazing lady called Margaret. She saw Joseph's kind of picture in a window and in our local pharmacist, and decided to make this amazing Christmas kind of village for Joseph, where we could raise money for us to go over to New York. This Christmas village was beautiful, and Joseph loved going on every fairground ride. He loved the kind of the attention that he was getting down there. His face was on, up in the wall, high up, where everyone could come in and see. It was a beautiful time, and Joseph again was just doing so well. Steady, say, Nadolig llawen.
Nadolig llawen.
Right, go back. Nadolig llawen. Ready? Right, stand there.
Heaven.
Yeah, that's it. After, when Mommy goes like this, okay?
Nadolig llawen.
And then it came to December, and he started his radiotherapy, and he started to limp. And we thought it was because he had fallen off a chair and that he'd hurt himself. And there was something in the back of my mind that was saying, please don't let it be a relapse. And after many investigations, we had that horrible news, and which was worse. Being told that Joseph had relapsed was worse than hearing that he had got cancer in the first place, because my hope and my faith just kind of dropped for a moment, because I thought 5% chance now. It's not 50% anymore, it's now 5%. You know, how are we going to do this? And you know, it was the worst moment of my life, and what made it worse, because of restrictions, it was only me and Joseph there at the time. I didn't have anyone around me when this happened, and it was horrendous. I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. But then I spoke to some amazing kind of network support in solving cancer, and they told me about all the other kind of trials and treatments that we could go on, and then my faith and hope came back and I was in fighting mode again. But Joseph kept on deteriorating, and eventually his SAT levels were so low that he ended up in intensive care, but still never believed any second that anything bad was going to happen. I still had that hope and faith. It was Boxing Day, December 2021, and I could see there was something wrong, and they wanted to put Joseph on a ventilator, but I wouldn't let them. I wanted him. I knew what putting on a ventilator meant, that he wasn't going to wake up. They decided to give him a little bit of a chance before he went on it, but then something happened, and I now know his lungs were filling up with blood, and he died instantly of a pulmonary hemorrhage. And I was told that if he had gone on the ventilator that day, he wouldn't have made it, and he would have passed away then. So I got to believe that we were guided somehow not to put him on a ventilator that day, because it gave us that extra day with him, and I would have always had that regret that if he had gone on the ventilator, he would have, you know, we wouldn't have been able to say goodbye properly. And we you know, it was just one day, but we did have a lovely day, and he perked up before the end. And I don't know if you're spiritual, but Joseph, just before he passed away, he had this burst of energy, and he was on a CPAP machine. He couldn't move, and all of a sudden he started jumping out of bed, pointing at things around him and saying, "Mammy, there, look over there." And I was like, me and the nurse couldn't believe, you know, we were like, what is he pointing at? And we couldn't figure out, and he was kind of getting frustrated with us because he couldn't figure out what he was pointing at. And then literally, as soon as he sat down, that's when the blood started filling up in his lungs. And I now have comfort in the thought that angels came down and they were there ready to take him. And I just wish things could have been different. Joseph loved home more than anything. Even when we went on holiday, he wanted to go home because he just loved home so much. Home was his safe place. It was where, you know, he loved his childhood just like I loved my childhood. That was his home. And I knew I needed to bring him home. And I knew instantly I needed to bury him at home. And some might think that, how can that be done? But, you know, we were very lucky to have land around us. And we got a mountain behind our house that is owned by us. And again, my family just started fighting for us. And again, that amazing support. And my sister was on the phone to all the councils and the politicians to say, well, what can we do? What permission do we need to get Joseph buried, you know, at home, not, you know, rather than in the graveyard. And they managed to do it. They managed to get the permission. But then my uncles and my cousins came out and started in the rain and in the most horrendous conditions for a week, started building what I now call the stairway to heaven, a stairway all up the mountain so that we didn't have to climb just the face of the mountain. We had a beautiful stairway to kind of walk up, and I couldn't believe what they were doing for us. And we got to bury then Joseph from home. and he's never going to leave. He's always going to be here. And having him close by, his body close by, it just helps us. It helps our grieving, and we get to go up there every day to see him and to talk to him. That's our place to kind of grieve, and that's where my husband has started doing lots of gardening around there, so that Joseph can look down and kind of enjoy all the pretty things that's around him. So after Joseph passed away, me and my sister just kind of spoke, and we said, we need to do something, because we can't let families kind of suffer the way that we suffer, because no family should have to fundraise for their child's treatment. And families in the UK at the moment still fighting fundraising for treatment that's not available on the NHS. They're fighting to get their child with leukemia to have CAR T-cell therapy. In Singapore, they're fighting for this bivalent vaccine or this DFMO study, or they're fighting as well to have surgery for SDR surgery for cerebral palsy, because unfortunately the funding of it is cut sometimes on the NHS, and they've got to seek it elsewhere. And we wanted to help those families in our situation, because we knew how hard it was to fundraise all that money. So we said we needed to create a charity in Joseph's name, and my sister said, let's call it Joseph Smile, because Joseph just smiled constantly, and he had this most beautiful smile. So we thought, yeah, that's the name, that has to be the name of the charity, because, you know, I want to remember his smile every day. So Joseph Smile, what we've kind of come up with, and today we finally got our registration number back. It was a very special day today, so we can now officially go into our launch, where we are able now to give grants to children to help them in their fight to kind of get treatment abroad or in the UK that's not available on the NHS. So any child that's on our campaign list, we're going to be fighting with them, and every month we're going to be giving what we earn, dividing it between those children, so that hopefully they can get their money sooner rather than later. And then by us, the more money that we can give them means the more time they get to spend together as a family, because they don't have to do so much fundraising themselves. And then also, with our help, hopefully, the more money we can give them, that child will be able to access the treatment sooner rather than later. Why should anyone have to wait? In an ideal world, everyone gets what they want, and if we can try and help that little bit along the way, then hopefully we'll do Joseph proud. And his passing was for some reason. We've got to keep his memory alive, and we've got to help other children to make sure that no family wastes any quality time, because that is something that we wasted. I don't want other families to go through that same situation. I don't want them to have any regrets. I want them to feel that relief that there's a charity out there fighting with them, helping them get the money that they need for the treatment for their child. So we're able now to support any child up to the age of 25, and hopefully it will go from strength to strength.